Choose, my dad said. Us or that child. My sister laughed. Don't expect help if you pick wrong. I picked up my daughter's backpack and walked out. Months later when they saw us again, they couldn't believe what they were looking at. Choose, my dad said. He didn't even look at her when he said it. He was staring straight at me like this was a business decision. Us or that child. My sister Megan let out a short laugh from the couch. Don't expect help if you pick wrong. The room felt smaller than it should have been. Same living room I grew up in, same photos on the walls, but everything about it felt. I was holding Ava's backpack in one hand. Pink with a broken zipper I kept meaning to fix. She was standing behind me, quiet, holding onto my sleeve like she already knew what was happening. She's not that child, I said. Her name is Ava. My mom shook her head like I was being difficult on purpose. She's not your responsibility, Linda. You barely knew her mother. That part wasn't even true. I knew Rachel better than anyone. We grew up together, shared everything, even plans that never happened. And when she died, there wasn't anyone else. No father in the picture, no relatives who wanted to step in. Just paperwork, silence, and a 5-year-old girl who kept asking when her mom was coming back. I didn't plan to become her guardian. I just didn't leave. Temporary help is one thing, my dad said. But this? You're ruining your life over a mistake that isn't yours. Behind me, Ava shifted a little closer. I could feel her fingers tighten on my sleeve. I didn't turn around. If I looked at her, I knew I wouldn't be able to keep my voice steady. I already made my choice, I said. Megan rolled her eyes. Then don't come back asking for anything. That was the part that stuck with me. Not the ultimatum. Not even the way my mom looked relieved when I said it. It was how certain they were that I would fail. Like they were already waiting for the moment I'd come back, exhausted, broke, ready to admit they were right. I bent down, zipped Ava's backpack properly and took her hand. We're leaving, I said. No one tried to stop me. The door closed behind us and that was it. No plan. No savings worth mentioning. Just a small bag, a scared kid, and the feeling that I had just burned the only bridge I had left. We made it halfway down the street before Ava finally spoke. Are we in trouble? I squeezed her hand. No. That was a lie. Because by the time my phone started ringing, I already knew something was about to get worse. And it wasn't them calling me back. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket. Unknown number. I let it ring the first 3 times. I was more focused on where we were even going. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I just knew we couldn't stay there. Ava was quiet beside me, dragging her backpack a little on the pavement. Every few steps she looked up at me like she was checking if I was still sure. The phone rang again. I finally picked up. Hello. There was a pause, then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Linda. I stopped walking. Grandma. Ava looked up at me when I said it like the word itself meant something safe. I heard, she said. Your mother called me. Of course she did. Probably not to help. Just to complain. I turned slightly away, lowering my voice. If she told you, then you already know I know they gave you an ultimatum. That made me pause. Not a situation. Not a disagreement. An ultimatum. I chose Ava, I said. I figured you would. There was something in the way she said it. Not surprised. Not disappointed. Just certain. I swallowed. I didn't plan this. I don't even know where we're going yet. Where are you right now? I looked around. Just a quiet street, a bus stop up ahead, nothing familiar anymore. A few blocks from the house. Stay there, she said. I'm sending a car. That caught me off guard. You don't have to do that. I can figure something out. Linda, she said a little firmer, you already did the hard part. Let me handle the rest. I didn't answer right away. Growing up, Grandma was always distant. Not cold, just separate. She never came to holidays, never stayed long when she did visit. My parents always said she thought she was better than everyone else. But she still called me every birthday. She still asked about school, about work, about things no one else in the family cared about. And now she was the only one calling. Okay, I said finally. Good. It'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up before I could say anything else. Ava tugged my hand. Who was that? By Grandma. She nodded slowly. Is she nice? I thought about it. I think so. We waited at the bus stop. I sat down, pulled her closer and tried to ignore the knot in my stomach. Because none of this felt real yet. Not the argument. Not leaving. Not even the idea that we had somewhere to go. Until the car showed up. But quiet. The kind of car you don't question because it clearly doesn't belong on your street. Pulled up right in front of us. The driver stepped out and looked straight at me. Linda. I nodded. He opened the back door without another word. Ava looked at me, then at the car. Is this for us? Yeah, I said. But something about it didn't feel like help anymore. It felt like stepping into something I didn't understand yet. And I was right. Because when we finally pulled up to where my grandma lived, I realized two things at once. First, this wasn't just a house. And second, my parents had never told me the truth about her. The gates opened before the car even fully stopped. Not a normal driveway gate. Tall, black, the kind you only see around places that don't want to be approached. The driver didn't press anything, didn't call anyone. They just opened. Ava leaned closer to the window. Is this where your grandma lives? Yeah, I said, but it didn't sound convincing even to me. Because I had been here once. Years ago. And it wasn't like this. Back then I remembered a quiet older house. Big sure but normal. A little outdated. Nothing like what I was looking at now. This place looked rebuilt. Expanded. Sharper. Like someone had taken the old version and replaced it with something that didn't care about blending in. The car rolled up the long driveway and stopped near the entrance. Before I could even reach for the handle, the front door opened. My grandma walked out. Same posture. Same calm way of moving. But everything else, different. She was dressed like she had somewhere important to be, not like someone who stayed home all day. And behind her, through the open door, I caught a glimpse of people moving inside. Not family. Stuff. She walked down the steps toward us, and for a second I forgot what I was supposed to say. Linda, she said. I stepped out of the car. Ava stayed close, still holding on to me. You made it. I nodded. I didn't realize you lived like this. She gave a small smile. Your parents never liked talking about me unless it was useful. That sounded about right. Her eyes shifted to Ava. And this must be her. Ava didn't hide. She looked up, serious, studying her. This is Ava, I said. My grandma crouched slightly, just enough to be at her level. Hi, Ava. Ava hesitated, then nodded. Hi. There was a short pause. Then my grandma stood back up and looked at me. Come inside. You both need to rest. We followed her in. The inside was even worse. Or better. I couldn't decide. Everything was clean, organized, expensive without trying too hard. People moved quietly, like they already knew what needed to be done without being told. It didn't feel like a home. Felt like a system. A woman approached us almost immediately. The rooms are ready. Rooms. Plural. I looked at my grandma. You didn't have to. I did, she said. You're not guests. That word stuck. Not guests. Then what were we? She led us upstairs, down a hallway that seemed longer than it should have been. She opened one door. Linda, this will be yours. Another door. And Ava's is next to you. Ava peeked inside her room first. Then she looked back at me, eyes wide. Is this really mine? I stepped in behind her. It wasn't just a room. It was fully set up. Bed, clothes, toys, books, things she didn't even have before. How did you? I started. I asked your mother for her size, my grandma said. She was more helpful than she realized. That didn't sit right. Not helpful. Not intentionally. I turned to her. Why are you doing all this? She didn't answer immediately. Instead she looked at Ava again, then back at me. Because you chose correctly. That answer should have been enough. But something about the way she said it made me feel like there was more behind it. A lot more. And I didn't have to wait long to realize that this wasn't just about helping me. Because later that night, after Ava fell asleep, someone knocked on my door. It wasn't my grandma. And what they told me made it very clear. I hadn't just walked away from my family. I had stepped into something they had been hiding from me my entire life. The knock came twice. Not loud, just precise. I opened the door expecting one of the staff. It wasn't. The man standing there looked like he didn't belong to a house like this. Not because of how he was dressed, but because of how he carried himself. Like he wasn't here to serve anyone. Linda, he asked. Yeah. My name's Daniel. Your grandmother asked me to speak with you. I stepped out and closed the door behind me so Ava wouldn't wake up. What about? He didn't answer right away. Just glanced down the hallway then back at me. Somewhere more private. That immediately put me on edge. You can say it here. He studied me for a second then nodded. Fair enough. Another pause. Then he said, do you know what your grandmother actually does? I almost laughed. No one ever bothered explaining that to me. That's what I thought. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thin folder. Not thick, not dramatic. Just intentional. He handed it to me. I didn't open it yet. What is this? Something your parents knew about. And chose not to tell you. That made my stomach tighten. Why would they hide anything about her? I asked. Because they're afraid of her, he said. That didn't make sense. They act like she's irrelevant. They act like that in public. That was worse. I opened the folder. The first page wasn't what I expected. No legal documents, no obvious business papers. Photos. Buildings. Offices. People shaking hands. My grandmother in the background of some of them, always slightly out of focus like she wasn't meant to be the center but still was. I flipped to the next page. Names. Companies. A lot of them. And I recognized some. Not personally but enough to know they weren't small. What am I looking at? I asked. Daniel leaned slightly against the wall. Your grandmother owns controlling stakes in most of those. I looked back down. That's not possible. It is. I flipped another page. More names. More numbers. This wasn't just wealth. This was influence. The kind my parents would never even come close to. They told me she was just distant, I said. They told you what was convenient. I closed the folder slowly. Why are you showing me this? Because now you're here, he said. And that changes things. I didn't like how that sounded. Changes what? Before he could answer, a voice came from the end of the hallway. That's enough, Daniel. I looked up. My grandmother was standing there. She walked toward us, calm as ever. Daniel straightened slightly. She deserves to know. She will, my grandma said. But not like this. He hesitated, then gave a small nod and stepped back. Good night, Linda. And just like that he walked away, leaving me standing there with a folder I didn't understand and a feeling that I had just crossed into something I couldn't step out of. My grandma stopped in front of me. You weren't supposed to find out tonight, she said. I held up the folder slightly. Find out what? That you're not who they said you were. She looked at me for a moment. Then she said, no. A short pause. That your parents didn't just throw you out because of Ava. That made everything go quiet. What does that mean? She didn't answer immediately. And that was when I realized something worse than anything Daniel had said. This wasn't about money. It wasn't even about control. It was about why my parents gave me that ultimatum in the first place. And for the first time since I walked out of that house, I started to think it wasn't just about rejecting Ava. It was about keeping me away from something. Or someone. I didn't sleep. I tried. I lay there staring at the ceiling, going over every second from earlier like I missed something obvious. Ava was in the next room. I checked on her twice just to make sure she was still there, still real, still safe. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing my dad's voice. Us or that child. It didn't sound like anger anymore. It sounded like pressure. Like he needed me to choose wrong. Around 3 a.m, I gave up and got out of bed. The house was quiet but not empty. There were still lights on downstairs. I followed them. My grandma was in what looked like an office. Not a home office. Something more official. Large desk, multiple screens, papers organized in perfect stacks. She didn't look surprised when I walked in. I figured you wouldn't sleep, she said. I need you to explain this, I said, holding up the folder. She nodded toward the chair across from her. Sit. I didn't argue. For a few seconds neither of us said anything. Then I asked, why did they really kick me out? She folded her hands on the desk. Because you became unpredictable. That doesn't mean anything. It does to people who rely on control, she said. I frowned. Control over what? Me. Partially. That wasn't comforting. Linda, she said, your parents have been involved in my affairs for years. Not directly. They don't have that kind of access. But close enough to benefit. I tried to process that. You mean, money? Among other things. And me taking in Ava somehow, what disrupted that? Yes. That made even less sense. How? She looked at me carefully like she was deciding how much to say. Because Ava is not just Rachel's daughter. That hit wrong immediately. What does that mean? I asked. It means Rachel didn't tell you everything, she said. I felt my chest tighten. About what? Before she could answer, there was a quick knock, then Daniel stepped in without waiting. Sorry, he said. You need to see this. He placed a tablet on the desk and turned it toward us. It was a video. Security footage. The timestamp was from earlier that night. Front gate. A car stopped outside. Not just any car. I recognized it instantly. My dad's. I leaned forward. What is he doing here? No idea, Daniel said. But he's been sitting out there for 10 minutes. The camera zoomed slightly. My dad stepped out of the car. Then my mom. And Megan. All three of them. At the gate. Not leaving. Waiting. I looked at my grandma. They told me not to come back. They didn't expect you to come here, she said. On the screen, my dad looked straight at the camera. Like he knew it was there. Then he did something that made my stomach drop. He raised his hand. Not to wave. To signal. And from the side of the road, another car pulled up behind them. One I didn't recognize. Who is that? I asked. Daniel didn't answer right away. My grandma did. People your parents shouldn't be involved with. The gate stayed closed. No one let them in. But they weren't leaving either. And somehow, that felt worse. Because it meant they weren't here to fix anything. They were here for something else. And whatever it was, it had nothing to do with me coming home. We watched the screen in silence. My dad kept his hand raised for a few seconds, then lowered it when nothing happened. The second car stayed behind them, engine still running. They're not trying to get in, I said. No, my grandma replied. They're waiting for a response. From who? She didn't answer that. Daniel zoomed in on the second car. Dark windows. No plates visible from that angle. Do you recognize it? He asked. I shook my head. No. That's not a good sign, he said. Nothing about this was a good sign. I stood up. I'm going down there. No, both of them said at the same time. I looked at my grandma. They're my parents. And they made their position clear, she said. That was before this, I pointed at the screen. They came here. With someone else. I need to know why. She held my gaze for a moment, then gave a small nod. Daniel goes with you. That wasn't a suggestion. A few minutes later I was outside. The air felt colder than it should have been. The gate opened just enough for us to step through, then stopped. My parents turned as soon as they saw me. For a second no one said anything. Then my mom spoke first. Linda. Just my name. Like nothing had happened. I stayed where I was. Why are you here? My dad glanced past me toward the house, then back at me. We need to talk. You already said everything earlier. This is different. Doesn't look like it, I said, nodding toward the car behind them. Who's that? Megan stepped in before he could answer. That's not important. It is to me. Another pause. Then the back door of the second car opened. A man stepped out. I didn't recognize him, but something about the way Daniel shifted slightly beside me told me he did. The man walked up slowly, stopping a few feet from my dad. He looked at me, then at the house behind me. Then back at me again. So this is her, he said. I didn't respond. My dad finally spoke. Linda, just come with us. We'll explain everything. No. That came out faster than I expected. He took a step forward. You don't understand what you've walked into. I almost laughed. I think I'm starting to. The man from the other car shook his head slightly. No, you're not. Daniel stepped half a step in front of me. Not blocking, just there. State your business, he said. The man ignored him. He was still looking at me. You took the child, he said. Not a question. I felt Ava's absence behind me more than ever. Yes, I said. He nodded once. That complicates things. For who? I asked. For everyone, he said. My grandma's voice came from behind us. Then you should have thought about that before showing up at my gate. I turned. She was standing there, calm as ever. But this time there were people behind her. Not staff. Security. The man's expression shifted slightly. Not fear. Recognition. Mrs. Carter, he said. So that was it. Carter. Not just Grandma. A name people reacted to. She stepped forward just enough to stand beside me. You're trespassing, she said. And you brought the wrong people with you. My dad looked between us. We didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, she said. Silence stretched for a second. Then the man spoke again. We're not here for you, he said, looking directly at her. That was a mistake. But she smiled. Just slightly. I know, she said. Then she added. You're here for the girl. Everything in me went cold. No, I said immediately. But no one was listening to me anymore. The man didn't deny it. My dad didn't deny it. No one did. I felt it before anyone said it out loud. This was never about me choosing Ava. It was about Ava being chosen long before I ever stepped in. And whatever she was involved in, it was big enough that my own family tried to push me away from her. Not to hurt me, but to keep me out of this. Too late for that.